Hello, we're here to talk to you about the Senior Executive Service and the Executive Core Qualifications, or as we call them, the ECQs. These are what are used in your preparation for application to the SES. Some of the topics that will be covered: the Senior Executive Service, the Qualifications Review Board, or the QRB, the ECQs, the CCAR Model, which is the model that OPM strongly recommends ECQ narratives be written in, some do's and don'ts, and a plan of action. The objectives today are to give an overview of the SES hiring process, the role of the QRB, and to provide some further insight with regards to the ECQs and how they apply to the SES. Some of the abbreviations you will hear: ERB, that is the Executive Resources Board. It is an agency-specific board that ensures fair and equitable merit staffing hiring of SES applicants. The QRB is the OPM Administered Qualifications Review Board. This is the final step in the SES hiring process. ECQs, these are the Executive Core Qualifications by which candidates are assessed to be successful leaders. And TQs, or we usually call them MTQs, these are the mandatory technical qualifications that are specific to each job and position. A little about the SES. With the Civil Service Reform Act of 1978, the SES replaced those GS 16 through 18 positions that most of us may still be familiar with. These are the top level management positions within the federal government, and SES members are usually the major link between presidential appointees and the rest of the federal workforce. They are selected for their exceptional leadership skills and attributes, and these are the key positions just below top presidential appointees. Some of the goals of the SES: to improve the ongoing executive management of the federal government, to select and develop a cadre of highly competitive and competent senior executives, and to also hold fellow executives accountable for their individual and organizational performances and successes. There are 4 types of SES appointments. We are focused on the career SES appointment, which is a competitive service. All SES positions or all SES career appointments are made through competition. There's also non-career SESs. These are non-competitive appointments made by presidential appointees, and these non-career SES members serve at the pleasure of the appointing official. There is limited term and limited emergency SES appointments. These are time-limited appointments for limited term, no more than 3 years, for a specific project nature type job or task. And for limited emergencies, instances such as Hurricane Katrina, the BP oil spill, Hurricane Sandy, agencies utilize limited emergency appointments for no more than 18 months. Compensation. All SES pay is based on performance. Agencies are either certified or not certified by OPM in order to set pay for their new executives at certain levels. Agencies that have a certified and OPM certified performance management system can set pay for their executives up to $183,300. For those agencies that are not certified by OPM, they are capped at setting pay for their new executives at only $168,700. The 235 and the 203 amounts listed at the bottom, these basically state that in aggregate, no SES member can earn more than these amounts in any performance cycle. These are through a combination of salary increases, performance awards, bonuses, relocation and retention awards, presidential rank awards, and any awards of those nature. Some of the benefits of being an SES member: we earn 8 hours of annual leave per pay period with a maximum carryover of up to 720 hours. They are afforded performance awards and bonuses, presidential rank awards, recruitment, relocation, and retention bonuses, student loan repayments, sabbaticals, home leaves. Many different benefits are awarded to SES members. Individuals interested in becoming SES members should always check with their agency HR with regards to all of the different programs and benefits that are awarded their SES members. There are other provisions. SES members or new SES members are no longer eligible for premium pay, comp time, overtime, any of those compensatory time offs, as they have other benefits that are compatible once they become SES members. The SES hiring and selection process. There are 3 SES hiring methods: the traditional, resume-based, and accomplishment record methods. We are focused today on the traditional method. As you can see from the statistics, this is the model that is most used by agencies when hiring new SES members. The traditional method requires a resume, separate narratives addressing ECQs, no more than 10 pages, and also a separate narrative that addresses technical quals. All SES vacancy announcements must include a definition of the ECQs, the requested technical quals that agencies require candidates be qualified in for fulfillment of the position requirements, the areas of consideration, the salary range, and while there is no veterans preference to application for the SES, there is Native American preference. I would like to note that there is no grade or education requirement for application or appointment to the SES. So while there are misconceptions about being in a certain grade for a certain period of time, that does not apply. All candidates that consider themselves eligible and can show a demonstration of executive leadership can apply and be appointed to the SES. This slide deals with the baseline of the merit staffing process. Agencies have 90 working days to complete a hiring action for all SES positions. It usually starts with the opening of a vacancy announcement for a minimum of 14 working days, or a minimum of 14 days, excuse me. Once that 14-day period closes, agency HR shops will do an eligibility determination of all candidates to determine who is eligible and not eligible to move to the next phase. In the rating and ranking phase, ERB members, the agency ERB, as well as the subject matter expert, are going to do a rating and ranking of all eligible applicants to determine the best qualified applicants to move into the next phase. In the next phase, either structured interviews or unstructured interviews are conducted, and the candidate is identified by the hiring official and selected, and a tentative offer is made to the candidate, passing the final step in the SES hiring process, which is the QRB. Once the candidate's tentative offer is made, the agency is going to work with that candidate to prepare their package to then submit to OPM. Packages that are received at OPM go through what we call a compliance and completeness review. This is OPM staff ensuring that applications were properly formatted, that the vacancy announcement met the requirements, and that the final selectee's package is fully ready to be reviewed by the QRB. Once a completeness and compliance review is done, OPM will convene and administer a QRB, and they're going to record the decisions of the board members at the time that the board meets. We usually notify agencies within a day of receiving the board's decisions. A little bit about the QRB and its functions. The QRB consists of 3 SES members, each from a different agency, with at least half of that board being career SES members. These members get together and they independently review cases, and they make a final determination, and then they engage in discussion over the particular cases to determine which cases are approved and which are disapproved. Board members serve for 3-month appointments, and we convene boards live and virtually. We never release the name of board members and their organizations. The role of the QRB is to assess the scope, breadth, depth of experience of a particular candidate, and they're going to determine, based on the demonstration of the evidence provided, whether or not they qualify to be appointed into the SES. If board members feel that candidates have shown a demonstration of executive leadership, they certify those ECQs, and the candidate can be further appointed into the SES. The board members do not rate, rank, or compare one candidate's qualifications against another. They do not see technical qualifications, and when QRB certification is received, it does not expire. For instance, a candidate that has been QRB certified that later finds out that the position they have been selected for is no longer available due to funding or whatever internal agency reason, they still possess that QRB certification. There are only 2 ways that QRB certification would expire, the first being misconduct and the second being poor performance. The goal of the QRB is really to ensure that the government is hiring executives with leadership qualifications and potentials that indicate success in their leadership roles. They're also there to identify those ECQs and competencies for the disapproved cases to ensure that candidates are fully aware of what they need to improve upon when they resubmit a case for a second and final review by the QRB. They are continuously making recommendations for improvements to the QRB process. QRB cases are submitted under 3 criterions, and these are usually determined by the agency. Criterion A is based on demonstrated executive experience, meaning a candidate possesses over 90% of the ECQs and the competencies. Criterion B deals with successful completion of a candidate development program. It is not an actual SES vacancy, but is a program that is completed by a candidate that can last anywhere from 12 to 24 months. These candidates go through a rigorous program that includes a 360 assessment, detailed assignments, and completion of different leadership activities to then prepare a package to come to OPM to be certified. These candidates can then later be appointed to the SES without further competition, provided they meet the technical quals. Criterion C deals with the possession of special or unique qualities. Those candidates such as attorneys, auditors, investigators, and engineers. Most agencies usually determine that they're going to use a criterion C for these individuals because they show that while they may not possess the full gamut of the ECQs, there is likelihood of success within the SES. Criterion A and C are actual SES vacancies that are required to be filled by the agency. We're going to talk about case disposition. There are really 2 case dispositions, approved or disapproved. You will see that we noted rewrite. The rewrite is an option that was introduced to board members to allow more flexibility with regards to their decisions. With the rewrites, cases or board members identify no more than 2 ECQs that candidates fall short in, and they give that candidate and the agency the opportunity to rewrite or revise those 1 or 2 ECQs to then submit for final disposition. What this means for the candidate is that cases that are approved, the candidate can be appointed into the SES without further delay. For cases that are disapproved, candidates and agencies have one more opportunity to recraft that package within 60 working days and resubmit to OPM to be reviewed by a new board. Cases or candidates that have to rewrite, they're given 14 days to revise those 1 or 2 ECQs so that the board can take a look at it and make that final decision. For disapproved cases, OPM gives agencies 3 options. They can make revisions to the case and resubmit it based on feedback, specific feedback by the QRB members. They can utilize an alternative action such as a criterion C if they determine that their candidates possess special and unique qualities, or they can resubmit the case as is to another QRB. OPM never recommends option 3 because chances are if one QRB has disapproved a case and the agency decides to submit that same case without revision to another QRB, it would most likely be disapproved. For cases that are disapproved a second time, the candidate and the agency has 12 months before they can resubmit an application or a case, for that particular position. The ECQs and the leadership competencies. The ECQs are basically the assessment tools that board members are going to use to determine a demonstration of executive leadership. OPM in years past brought together specialists, corporate executives, SES members, and psychologists to get together to determine how to best assess executive leadership. From those discussions derive the ECQs. They are comprised of the desired knowledge, skills, abilities, and behaviors that are required for successful executive leadership. There are 28 competencies within the ECQs, with 22 of them being specific to the 5 meta leadership competencies. We'll start off with leading change. This is all about being a change agent. How are candidates driving change, successful change, leading successful change within the agency? There are 6 competencies here when it comes to leading change. Candidates must hit at least 4 of the 6 competencies. Board members pay particular attention to creativity and innovation, strategic thinking, and vision. These are some of the questions that candidates want to think about and focus on as they're crafting their ECQ narratives. You want to get across the organizational vision, how they transcended that vision into action. How did they strategically initiate and implement change? How did they deal with challenges? How did that vision lead to impacting organizational results? Next, we have leading people. This is all about the human aspect of leadership, leading people to accomplish the goal, accomplish the mission. There are 4 competencies here, and candidates must hit at least 3 out of the 4 competencies. When addressing leading people, candidates should focus on the size of staff that they have led, what were the challenges they faced in leading a staff, how did they leverage diversity amongst their staff, how did they lead their staff through a challenge through motivation, what were they doing to develop their staff members. You have to get across the difference between leading and managing or supervision. Results-driven speaks for itself. It's all about results, demonstrated results within the organization. There are 6 competencies for results-driven. Candidates should hit at least 4 out of the 6. Board members pay particular attention to accountability, customer service, and problem solving. When candidates are addressing results-driven, they should focus on the priorities and the objectives that they set. How did those priorities and objectives lead to the impacting results, whether good or bad? How did the candidates identify problems and implement decisions to achieve the goal, to overcome the challenges that are faced when achieving results? How did candidates take care of customers, stakeholders, leadership? Business acumen is about financial management, human capital management, and technology management. Candidates must hit at least 2 out of these 3 competencies. One recommendation would be to focus on the financial and human capital management and incorporate technology management in how financial and human capital management was gained. Candidates should focus on the experience in creating and administering budgets, working with a multi-sector workforce, identifying the size of the budgets and the resources that they were working with, and talk a little bit about procuring and utilizing resources. Board members do not expect candidates to be tech savvy, but they're hoping that candidates can utilize technology in some way to improve business or operations. And finally, we have building coalitions. This is all about networking to bring groups together to accomplish a mission and achieve a goal. There are 3 competencies for building coalitions. Candidates should focus on at least 2 of these 3 competencies. And board members are usually focused on the partnering and the influencing and negotiating. Here, candidates should focus on what groups they brought together, both internal and external to the agency, and how they brought this group together to overcome challenges that are faced with bringing new groups together. Every group has their own cultural ways, their own nuances, getting across and getting past those nuances to bring the group together to accomplish the mission. The fundamental competencies usually are the basic and initial competencies that you have that lead you to the remaining competencies to become that executive leader. Most of us already have developed interpersonal skills, oral communication, integrity and honesty, and written communication by the time we are attaining or we are reaching that executive level. Writing the ECQs. The CCAR model is the model that OPM strongly recommends candidates utilize to draft their ECQ narrative. It is a results-oriented approach, and it focuses specifically on the accomplishments of the candidate versus that of the organization. Candidates are going to provide 2 examples per ECQ using the CCAR model. They're going to talk about the challenge, they're going to give some context behind it, then they're going to focus on their specific leadership actions and how those actions then tie to results. You want to keep in mind that you never let your context overshadow the specific leadership actions as well as the results. A quick example. Highlighted, you will see the challenge that was listed by the candidate, a lack of formal and corporate strategic approach to managing web assets, and there was also the additional challenge of getting leadership buy-in to the candidate's vision. They next focus on the context, short and to the point, very concise. They went into addressing their specific leadership actions, what they did, not what the team did, but what they specifically did. How did they pull themselves out of a team to set themselves apart as the leader? You will see here highlighted, I met, I demonstrated, I created, I led. It is all about I and what the candidate did to lead. This is followed by the results. This particular example does not have a concrete result as it is future seeing. However, board members did give credit to the candidate for enabling their actual vision to be a part of the organization's strategic plan. The ECQs and the resume. You always want to keep in mind the ECQs as you're restructuring your resume. The resume that you have used to apply for lower level GS positions, the GS 12s through 14 positions, you need to take a look at that resume and recraft it so that ECQs and demonstrated executive leadership comes across in that resume. They should show the breadth and scope of experience and responsibility, and they should also highlight accomplishments that are relevant to and focused on executive leadership. It is recommended that for federal employees, their grade and salary is included, as this gives board members an idea of the career progression of those particular candidates. Some helpful hints to get through the writing of the ECQ narrative. You want to always ensure that the write-up is focused on demonstrated executive leadership. It is not focused on the managerial, supervisory, or technical aspects. Examples should be no more than 10 years old. Follow the CCAR model as it explains the why, the how, and the what. And you want to provide examples that are relevant to leadership. We address the competencies that should be talked about, a majority. Many think that because there are 28 competencies, 15 competencies out of 28 is a majority. That is not correct. A majority is 20 or more competencies. You also want to ensure that your examples are organized, clear, and concise. Some things that candidates do want to ensure they are doing, and that is following the format. 1-inch margins, 12-point font, regardless of whether it's Arial or Times New Roman, and it's a 10-page narrative limit. We strongly recommend that pages are numbered. For candidates that wish to use introductory summaries, we request that you limit those summaries to 1 paragraph or no more than 1 paragraph. Board members can glean a lot of the summary from the resume, so they would prefer that candidates begin telling their story right away. Candidates want to quantify achievements, utilize metrics in any way, provide those measurable results, and utilize action-oriented verbs and transitions, as this helps to tell a better story. Candidates can also use experience from the public and private sector as long as they are speaking to demonstrated executive leadership. You want to use the personal I and not the third person as you're describing your challenges, your experiences, and what you have done. You want to write in layman's terms. You have to keep in mind the audience that you are writing for. They may not have or know the culture, the language, the acronyms, and the individual agency cultures that you may be used to. And you have to keep that in mind, that your audience are most likely going to be members that are not from agencies that you have come from. You want to definitely proofread your narrative. You want to ensure that you're spelling out and limiting the use of acronyms. And we want to ensure that you are accepting the feedback from the executive resources staff that are working with you to put your final package together before it comes to OPM. Some things candidates want to avoid. Utilizing the same example for more than 1 ECQ. This leads board members to think that there is a lack of variety of experience and breadth and scope of assignments that candidates have participated in. Please avoid vague statements and open-ended statements or questions. You definitely want to avoid the grammatical errors and the typos, and that is on purpose, what you see there. And you want to avoid referring candidates or board members to other parts of the ECQs. You do not want board members to get to page 8 and you're referring them back to page 1, as that breaks their reading and it breaks the story up. You do not want to overuse bolding and underlining. Doodads, italics, the bullet points, and the little colorful details takes away from the substance of your narrative. Board members want a clear, concise, simply told story without distractions. Please avoid making disparaging remarks about former managers, colleagues, or even agencies, as this does not sit well with board members, and it speaks to you as a person or an individual when you continuously make disparaging remarks. While you can address bad experiences in your narrative, you want to turn those experiences into a positive outcome. Avoid revealing your affiliations or political affiliations or activities. And you want to avoid those bureaucratic words, expressions, name dropping, who you're familiar with, as those things, again, take away from the substance of your story. There is no need to include the ECQ definitions or the competency definitions, as board members are well aware of them. Your plan of action. You want to start out with that personal assessment. Everyone should do that 360 assessment on themselves, identify what competencies that they currently possess and what competencies they need to work on attaining. Evaluate your reasons for becoming an SES member. You want to review your experiences against your resume and the ECQ definitions and determine which examples best fit into the categories of the 5 ECQs. You want to start writing your ECQs as soon as possible. It takes 30 to 40 hours to do a first draft well, and it's going to take an additional 6 months to really finalize and be comfortable with your final version of your ECQs. You want to constantly review USA jobs, and you can apply for SES jobs outside of the current agency that you reside in. It is very important that you obtain an SES mentor, someone that is going to advocate and champion for you and your goals, and they're going to work to provide that feedback of your ECQ narratives and your work experience to determine whether you are ready to take that next step. Another proactive approach in your plan of action is to identify those jobs or tasks that require additional experience, problem solving, those particular skills that you fall short in. Think about rotations outside of your agency, within your agency at the different levels, and you want to participate in external details and task force that you can participate in and take a leadership role in. Again, you're always wanting to get across the leadership aspect. Sometimes it takes leaving your organization to find that opportunity that's going to give you that chance to lead. A final plan of action is identifying candidate development programs within the different federal agencies. These training programs help round out those particular ECQs or competencies that you may not currently possess. These programs usually last anywhere from 18 to 24 months, and as with SES vacancies, they are always open to civil service employees or all qualified individuals. We will leave you with the leadership journey. You will see that it starts with the fundamental competencies, because usually you've completed the fundamental competencies at the lower levels of your career and your experiences. And each level that you attain, you're garnering the remaining competencies so that by the time you get to the executive level, your experiences encompass a majority of the competencies. We will leave you with resources. The OPM website is a very good resource to find out about the SES, about the guides to SES and SES qualifications, and there are several handouts that can be found on the OPM website to help you in your preparation for the ECQs, application to SES. Finally, please feel free to contact the Senior Executive Resources Services Group at OPM with any questions, any feedback that you have to provide, and any materials that you are looking for. You can contact us to provide that for you.